All right, welcome back to the Attack the Rack YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking Surviving Barstool. Surviving Barstool wrapped up this season, and Rhea is your winner. Came down to the final three, her, Dave Portnoy, and Megan making money. And Rhea was able to get the most votes from the jury to defeat Megan making money and Dave Portnoy to be the champion. We're going to be joined by Trent from Attack the Rack here in a little bit to talk about this season of Surviving Barstool as well. So stay tuned for that. We'll bring him on shortly. I think the story of this season of Surviving Barstool was Big Cat and all the fallout that came with his presence in the show. Obviously, he did quite a bit of backstabbing, which to me, everyone's doing that, so I don't see why it was such a big deal. Obviously, Kirk hates him now because of the way he played the game. Big Cat played the game in a way where he was able to get people eliminated using other people to vote people out without him actually voting for those people himself. So then he can come back and say, "Well, I didn't vote for you." And then, at the time, the people that got voted out took quite offense to that. Did not have nice things to say about Big Cat going forward. I think everyone's now got over it except for Kirk Minahan. He hates Big Cat now. And I don't know if that relationship will ever recover. Watching the finale, Kirk's still very, very upset with Big Cat and how he played the game. And after Kirk was eliminated, he took one last jab at Big Cat before going to the loser house, calling out Big Cat for being from Newton, Massachusetts. I will be honest, I had no idea. I thought he grew up in the Chicago area. I knew he went to University of Wisconsin. I figured he had always grown up, lived in the Chicago area, super big Chicago sports fan. And I figured he went to University of Wisconsin and then back to Chicago before ending up moving out to New York. Apparently, he lived his entire life until going to college in Newton, Massachusetts, and he grew up a big Boston sports fan. He claims now that he was also a Chicago sports fan, and once he moved to Chicago after his time at University of Wisconsin, took on all the Chicago teams as his number one team. To me, I could care less. Who cares? I don't see why that's that big of a deal. Apparently, Big Cat also thought that was a big deal. We'll get to that in a second. The other big story involving Big Cat in Surviving Barstool is the fact that he ended up quitting. Everybody, was not happy with him the way he played the game, and he got a guilty conscience. He couldn't handle it, so he basically quit, got himself eliminated. I think, so there's kind of three stories here involving Big Cat. One being how he played the game and stabbed people in the back and kind of had everybody doing his dirty work for him. That's number one. Number two, you've got, the fallout from that and how people reacted and how people were not very nice to him, and which led him to having a guilty conscience, not having fun anymore, wanting to get out of the situation, and basically quitting. And then you've got number three, the whole Newton, Massachusetts thing. I think he should not have quit. He should have kept playing. I don't think the fact that the way he played the game is that big of a deal because that's what everybody does. So I think the way that he has reacted to, um, the fallout with the way he played, reacted to him now being exposed from being from Newton, Massachusetts, the way he has handled all this since, talking about it endlessly on the Yak, talking about it endlessly on PMT, writing a blog about it, how bad he felt, and about how he played the game, number one, and number two, about how he's never shared with the people that he's not really from Chicago. Who cares? Who cares? I don't care. I don't think anyone really cares. He's made such a big deal about these three things. Again, the way he played, Newton, Massachusetts, and then quitting. He's made such a big deal out of these things that it's kind of made everything a bigger deal than what it really needs to be. I think he should have just kept playing the game the way he was playing Everyone's playing that way. It seems outside of Kirk, nobody cares. If you watch the jury, they're all having fun. They're all over it, except for Kirk. So he should have just kept playing the way he was playing. When the whole Newton thing, the Newton comment from Kirk was made, he should have just all he needed to say was, "Oh yeah, I'm from Newton. I grew up in Newton, Massachusetts." And be done and never mention it again. Never mention it again. And he shouldn't have quit. If he would have done those three things, kept playing, not quitting, and not making the big deal out of the Newton, Massachusetts thing, I don't think any of it, none of that would have ended up being a big deal. The way he reacted to it all is what made it a big deal. All right, so enough about that. The other kind of thing people like to talk about, Dave Portnoy, owner of the company, it's his 250 grand on the line. Should he have been in the show? I think there's two ways to look at it. You can look at it, well, there's a big, huge conflict of interest, which I think he addressed. He addressed it on the Unnamed show, and he addressed it on the final episode, going one by one through the jury. There's only a couple people that really probably would have voted to keep him in the game and not want to eliminate him because of the fact that he was the owner. Only a couple people. Most people don't care. So I don't really think that's that big of a deal. What I think is that having him a part of the show brings an incredible amount of entertainment value to the show because he is quite a character. He's super entertaining, and you do have that aspect of the fact that he's an owner. It brings a whole nother storyline to the show. This show is unlike any other reality television out there, right? Because number one, you've got the owner of a company participating in a reality show in which 250 grand is on the line. Number one. Number two, in all other reality shows, people show up on day one and they have never met each other before. The first time they meet. In this reality TV show, you've got everybody coming together for the show. They've already know each other. They already got relationships with each other. Some of them have known each other, worked with each other for years. That brings a different element to this reality TV show that you will not see in any other reality show. And then the other controversial aspect of the show was the fact that the Bussin' with the Boys guys, Will Compton, Taylor Lewan, they're in the midst of contract negotiations. Their contract was up, and they were participating in the show. And Big Cat and Dave Portnoy both admitted on camera several times they did not want one of those two guys to win because they did not want them to win the 250 grand and then leave Barstool. So some people think, well, that's a huge conflict of interest. In fact, I tweeted at Big Cat after he said that, why would you have them a part of the show then? Well, after thinking about it more, again, it does bring another great storyline to the show. It brings more entertainment to the show. And again, it's unlike any other storyline you'll see in any other reality TV. So I actually think, thinking about it more, I kind of like it. Plus, how can you not have Will Compton, the defending champ, in the show? And again, uh, Will Compton and Taylor Lewan, two incredibly entertaining guys, two huge fan bases. They have one of the most popular podcasts out there. They got to be a part of the show. This brings eyes to the show. All right, so going into the show, if I had to bet on someone to win, my money would have went on Roan. I think Roan is one of the most well-liked people at Barstool. So he's got good relationships with a lot of people. And I think he's super smart. And I think he could have used both of those to as his advantage. And I think he tried to. It just didn't work out for him. But that's who I thought was going to win. I also would have put money on Caleb for the same reasons. Caleb obviously now is no longer with Barstool, but Caleb is very well liked. And I think I don't think he necessarily portrays how smart he is, but I think he's very smart. So I think someone like him and Roan, because of how well they're liked and how smart they are, they could have really navigated those two things to their advantage and would have had a good shot of winning. And that's who, I would have picked. I would have picked Roan, but if not Roan, probably second, I would have went with Caleb. And Caleb, obviously, he didn't care. He didn't try. Very disappointing because had he advanced, a few episodes in, I think it would have brought a whole nother entertainment value to the show. But Rhea ended up winning. Congrats to Rhea. 250 grand richer she is. Came down to her, Megan making money, and Dave Portnoy. Out of those three, it's really hard to pick. It all depends on how you look at the game, what you think the strategy should be to win the game. You got two different strategies going on here. You've got Portnoy and Rhea, who had an alliance together. They had an alliance with Mubi, and they used their alliances to continue to advance throughout the game in some other strategic things. Whereas Megan making money, she did not have those the alliances. She was kind of on an island, and yet episode after episode after episode, she would survive, just kind of playing it cool. And towards the end, the only way she was going to advance is by winning the challenges. And as it was said many times on the final episode, she won 3 of the last 5 challenges to save herself. So I basically I think you need to look at between Portnoy and Rhea, and I don't know the answer, but whoever was more in charge, who was ever more so pulling the strings out of those two, if you're looking at this, if you feel like the winner should be the team, the someone who played the alliance game and was pulling strings and making moves and all that kind of stuff, if that's how you would, view who the winner should be, then I think you got to look at Dave or Rhea. Whoever was more in charge, they should get your vote to win. Or, um, like me, I like the way that Megan making money played. She didn't stab anybody in the back. She didn't play deceitful. She just kind of stayed in her lane, and she was really good in the challenges. So I liked how she played that way, and that's why I would have picked her to win. I did post a couple of polls, one on Twitter, one here on the YouTube channel, going into the final episode, which at that point there was still 4 people left. Um, you can take a look at these now, and you can see the results. And this is who you would want to win out of the remaining 4. So yeah, take a look at those, and let's now bring in Trent to get Trent's take on the season. All right, and now we bring in Trent from Attack the Rack. Trent is all over our Attack the Rack YouTube channel. In fact, you can see him currently every Monday and Wednesday on the Attack the Rack podcast, also with Big Mo. As you can see on there, you can see where you can follow him on X at ATR _ Trent, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy day to join us for a few minutes here, talking surviving Barstool.
Of course, my pleasure.
So it's been fun watching this and being able to kind of text with you on the side as the series is gone, getting your take on some things. Obviously, we're both Stoolies. Um, I want to start with going into the series. If you had at that point, if you had to place a bet on somebody to win, who would who would you have bet on?
If I were to pick someone right at like first, what was it, 24 contestants,
Yes.
I'd probably have to go with Mubi just because she was so new and
Okay.
like relationships were fresh. So she didn't really have to worry about like really just killing somebody and not have a friend afterwards.
Sure.
So I was leaning Mubi, and I figured like Jersey Jerry wouldn't win just because he played a good game the last time and they didn't want him to, probably didn't want him to win. But yeah, I would probably lean Mubi. But the girls did really well in this one. Granted, they all had those pre-alliances going into it, which I think helped in the long run. And then some of them just got strung along throughout the game. Mubi kind of got strung along throughout the game as well because she was with Portnoy. And then
Yeah.
Portnoy was like refusing to ever vote for her, which was weird. But yeah, I probably would have chose Mubi off right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, that was let me get your take on this. That was a little bit caused some controversy on the final episode when they had the jury out there. some people were questioning, and we'll talk a little bit more here in a second about Dave Portnoy being the owner of the company and participating in surviving Barstool. It's very unique. But some of the people on the jury were kind of complaining, like, well, you know, you asked Mubi to be a part of it. And when you did that, you immediately formed an alliance with her. She doesn't know anyone else. Is that kind of, how fair is that you own the company, you invite someone to be on the show that nobody knows and immediately form an alliance? Dave Portnoy kind of combated that by saying, well, what's the difference between that or any other alliance? What do you, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, well, I think obviously for the other players of the game, Dave playing makes it much harder for them, like mental warfare wise, because I think if he wasn't the owner and he's just a worker and at the game, I think he outplayed pretty much everybody. But I don't know how much of that had to come with him being the owner as well, because I feel like a lot of his moves, people were just kind of worried about like what would happen outside the game, which I think it adds that extra flair to the show. But yeah, I think it's tough because he at the wedding or the dinner, whatever they called
The pink wedding.
the pink wedding, like he after their team lost like 3 or 4 in a row, that team was in shambles. And then the other team made it seem like they were just clicking on all cylinders. And then Dave just like threw a wrench at them and just like screwed them all up. And then they all just turned on each other at that dinner. And he single handedly dominated that dinner. But then I thought Mega Making Money screwed up by not voting for who was it? Because they all like, let's get Rico because he's a dumbass
Yeah.
for giving up the idol.
And she did not, right? I forget who she voted for.
She voted for Rico,
Or she did vote for Rico.
but I think they wanted her to vote for somebody else to like prove some sort of alliance somewhere else.
Yeah, I was confused on that because you're right. She voted Rico, and immediately when she told Kirk,
Well,
he
Kirk's a
blew
dumb.
up on her.
Kirk's an idiot,
Yeah, he is.
and he's an idiot in all of those types of games that they play. And then he like forces a grudge outside of the game,
Yeah.
and I think that's where that other team got themselves in trouble with like, and like Biz was just along for the ride, which was awesome because
It
he had
was
no
fun.
idea at that wedding or at the dinner, or whatever. He was clueless of what was going on, which I thought was just awesome. But like with Whitney and Compton and those dudes, like they thought they were smooth sailing just because they had numbers, but it can flip on a dime. But
Yeah,
yeah, I thought Portnoy played the second half of the game pretty much perfect, and then won immunity.
your audio cut out a second there.
Did it?
There you go. You're back.
How far did you lose me?
Um, After you said Portnoy played a great second half.
Yeah, so like the when he won immunity for the last game, the one where they had to maze the ball through and then put him in the hole, like Rico had that in the bag. He just couldn't figure out how hard to hit him or how hard to push it down the thing. And then once Dave got it once, he just smoothed them out and like he was trying to protect Rico at that point
Yeah.
because he was going to flip on Rhea for the cocky celebration of Rico trying to get the immunity out, which Rico had to do because he was dead if he didn't. So I thought that reaction was by Rhea was a little much,
Yeah.
like just stay in your lane kind of.
Right. Right. Exactly. And um, you know, you mentioned kind of the relationship Portnoy has with these employees where they worried about, what could happen if they voted him out. And the thing I like about Barstool is that people come at Portnoy all the time and it doesn't affect him. It's like he embraces the confrontations with his employees because it makes for great content.
Yeah.
and he doesn't, he'll move on. Like he's battled with so many of the employees, and then it's like, okay, we battled, it's over, and now everything's cool again. And so I feel like anyone in the show that was scared to vote for him because he was the owner should not have been, um, because he embraces the entertainment factor of all that.
Hmm.
And it
Yep.
was interesting too. I heard him last week on the Unnamed show with Whitney and Kirk. It was hard to understand because they were just yelling at each other over the top of each other. But he went through every player and which people would would you think would not vote for him because they were scared of the whole he's the boss factor.
Yeah.
And he did it again, on the finale, going through every person on the jury, and he made some good points. Like Compton doesn't care, Luan or Taylor Lewan doesn't care, Big Cat doesn't care, Kirk doesn't care, Roan doesn't care. There was only a couple people where you're like, yeah, I can see them maybe voting, or wanting to not vote out Dave because they were a little bit worried
Yeah.
about him being the owner. But when you break it down person by person, there really wasn't too many people that probably would play the game that way.
No, and I mean, credit to Dave. He did play a very good game, and then he stole the immunity from Rico, which was wild. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I just feel like as the game got more mental and more just like draining for some of those, like Big Cat, who like
Yes.
too nice of a guy, um, and it kind of backfired on him late in the game because he had to make a decision. But yeah, I don't know. I think Dave being a part of it is good for content purposes, but I don't think it's good for the game as a whole.
Agreed. I think that even though, yeah, it's just there's got to be some conflict of interest. It's
Yeah.
his money and he's trying to win,
Right.
but from an entertainment aspect, he is as entertaining as they get.
Yeah.
From a
Yep.
content aspect, the show would not have been as good for the viewers if he's not in it.
Yeah. Like the scene where Rico was like, it was right before voting, I believe. And then Rico's like, well, we got to get Dan on board.
Yeah,
And he's like, what are you talking about? Because those three were already in cahoots the entire time.
that was weird.
Because they're like the big three anyways.
Yeah.
So then he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're an idiot. And now you're dead to me. And then Rico just, no meds Rico, just lost it. He got so confused and he started flipping on everybody. But then Curt tried to use him as like a little play toy.
Yeah.
And Kurt's like, get away from him, that kind of thing. And it's yeah, but it was very good.
I think the Rico beef, I think that's been resolved. They seem cool, but I don't know if Kirk will ever have any respect for Big Cat again, which to me is mind blowing.
Well, yeah,
I mean, everybody plays the game, you know, pretty much everybody played the
yeah,
game, being deceitful, backstabbing, and I mean, I think people in the moment took it personal, but if you watch how the attitudes of everyone on the jury, except Kirk, everyone seemed to be over it now, blow it off.
yeah.
Everyone's cool, but not Kirk
But it
when it comes
seems
to
like
Big
it
Cat.
seemed like that the reason that some of those guys were so upset, Whitney, Biz, Biz was upset because they got Whitney,
Yeah,
but Curt and Whitney and then Compton, like I think those three were more upset because they just flat out got outplayed. Like that, their
yeah,
team was in full control and it just disintegrated right in front of their face once the merger went away, or like once they went to just one big like
yep,
individual, and then they just got outplayed. So I think they're more upset about that because I feel like there wasn't a ton of backstabbing until like way late in the game.
true.
Like I felt the real backstab was like when Keegs got voted off towards the end, and I thought that was like the first like, oh, that was like a true backstab.
Yeah.
because like none of them really voted for each other, and it just felt like the order of people, like people knew that they were gone, like, and they were being honest about who they were going for even prior to going to voting. I think the person who got finessed the most was Francis, giving up the immunity to Dave because he just didn't understand the rules and the concept of the immunity.
Right.
And then Francis gives it up, and then Dave still goes and votes for him because he just wasn't a part of their alliance. And he like took it from him, and he's like, "I'm still voting for you. Like
Yeah.
you're gone."
Unbelievable.
So I think, but Francis in the last one, he was like heartbroken in the like the other
Yeah,
surviving Barstool.
yeah, but what do they call that one? That one was like out in the that was like actually like out in the
Yeah, it
woods.
was like dangerous. I forget what it was
Most
called.
dangerous game. It was kind of a combination of Survivor and
Like
Fear
Fear
Factor.
Factor. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Right.
Francis got belittled in that other one. So I
Yeah.
think that's why he was like trying to make the clarification of like, can I play this or not? And I think he felt like once, like if Francis wasn't gone, he would get that back
Sure.
from Dave.
Yeah.
And then if Rhea didn't give Dave's back because Dave gave it up, because just to keep it alive, gave it to Rhea. But like, what if Rhea didn't give that back? She probably would have been gone that day.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And it looked like initially she was not going to give it back.
yeah, because he was like, "Let me get that back," and she was like, "I don't know," and he's like, "What are you talking about?"
And then too, the other possible giving immunity to somebody else would have been when the one of the last challenges there with the balls, trying to get it into the hole. And at that point, Dave was trying to help or wanted to string Rico along to
Yeah,
the final without breaking his alliance with Rhea.
yep.
And he had an opportunity there because he won the immunity. He could have given that immunity to Rico, and he chose not to. I think
But that
that's
was when he
ultimately
just
he's just so competitive, I think.
well, that's because people that were already out of the game were texting people that were still in the game because Dave didn't know about the Rhea Compton exchange
Right.
until after he won the immunity, and then Rhea's just like freaking out. Like I would have voted her off just for being like a panic person.
Yeah.
Like she was just crying in like the last like couple. She was just a wreck,
Yeah.
So I
Yep.
think that would have been a perfect time to kill her.
Yeah.
Would have been when she was just in a mental pretzel, and then her not playing the immunity, like having that much trust in the final five or whatever, final six, whatever it was.
That took some big balls.
Yeah, but that would have been the perfect time to get her. But
Yeah.
yeah, I thought Dave, because once Dave found out that that text was out about like we got to get Dave, that's why he kept it,
Yeah.
is to save his own ass.
Yeah. All right, Trent. Well, thanks for joining us here. I know you got a game tonight. We'll get you out of here. Last question though, obviously, got to know final thoughts. Came down to the final three: Megan, Portnoy, Rhea. Rhea ended up winning. Thoughts on Rhea winning? If not Rhea, who would you have selected from those three to win the game?
I would have got rid of Rhea a long time ago because she was pulling so many strings all over the place during the game. So I would have said Megan, and Megan kind of made a good run at the end. She won what, back to back
Yeah, and then she
immunities,
she won the last one too. So she won three of the last five challenges to
three of the
save
last
her.
five, and that like if you're gonna go based off like resume to win the money, I think that I guess it depends because it's like the challenges are one part of the game in winning immunity, but also like alliances and pulling strings and getting people on your side is another part where I thought Megan didn't do very well because she got kind of stuck in the middle because she's the only one left from the Meltdown tribe, and
Yeah,
then didn't really have any relationships inside Portnoy's tribe. So I probably would have went with Megan just because the end performance. But if they're going based off of like outside the immunity games, Rhea for sure because I
okay.
felt like her and Portnoy pretty much ran the game.
Yeah. So
Uh,
would you say that it was more of those two then? Would you say it was more Rhea bringing Dave along and being in charge, or
ooh,
Dave? Because I think if you out of the you'd have to kind of probably pick one of those two then. Whoever
Yeah,
was more in charge.
but I think it was a different sort of like it was different in charge because Dave would put thoughts in people's head, and that's kind of what made him in charge. He wasn't like bouncing around trying to make alliances for later in the game. Like he stuck with his core alliances, and then Rhea was more of like I'm gonna get alliances with all these different people throughout the entire game, while Dave was just like planting these ideas in people's heads, which stirred up everything.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think I think Rhea was more of like the brains of the operation, and then Dave was just like the kill shot guy who would just make people panic. So I mean, Rhea deservingly, I think, did win, but all the emotional breakdowns and stuff, get her out.
Yeah.
Like we don't have time for that.
Yeah.
So I think they both played great games,
Sure.
uh, but just the way it ended with Rhea like shot blogging Rico at the end by not playing immunity and that kind of thing. Like I would have got her gone right after that.
All right, Trent. Well, hey, one other thing. Sorry. I know I already said one other thing. One other thing. Got to talk Gilly just a second. In my opinion, he was one of the most entertaining characters on the show.
Yeah.
Absolutely hilarious. I mean, I always knew, who he was and his podcast, $1 million Worth of Game. Haven't really tuned in a bunch, but now following him on social media, seeing his videos of him dancing for the Philadelphia Eagles, just an entertaining, hilarious guy. One of the funniest moments was when they were talking about how after the very first challenge, speaking of clueless, like you mentioned, Biz, not
Mhm.
understanding the game or what's going on. Apparently, after like the first immunity challenge, Gilly was asking, "Oh, is it all over now?"
Just thought it was over.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought Gilly was a perfect insert for that game. Um, and like then he brought out the extra large hockey helmet, and like it helped him at one point because he fell and hit his head, but he had the helmet on. But then
yeah,
another point where they had to do the chain balancing where they were all connected.
yeah,
Then he like busted it, and like the
yes,
helmet was like down to his nose, so he couldn't see anything.
right,
I think he
yeah,
cost the helmet. The helmet saved him in the game and also costed him in the game. But yeah, he was very entertaining. Didn't
yeah.
even know what immunities were until he was gone.
Or
It was
alliances.
yeah, our alliances. It was perfect. It was perfect.
All right. Well, hey, we could go on and on and on talking about it. Trent, again, thanks for joining us here talking Surviving Barstool. And again, you can see Trent every Monday and Wednesday on the Attack the Rack podcast with myself and Big Mo. Thanks, Trent.
Of course.
Yeah, so again, big thanks to Trent for joining us, talking a little Surviving Barstool. If you guys haven't watched Surviving Barstool, highly recommend it.